आज लास्ट टाइम हम लोगों ने pandas लाइब्रेरी एंड numpy लाइब्रेरी पढ़ा था फॉर डेटा एनालिसिस। वहाँ पे हम लोगों ने एनालाइज किया था डेटा किस टाइप का था, क्या एवरेज था पर्टिकुलर कॉलम में, क्या एवरेज बेस पे था, जॉब टाइटल मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल किस जॉब टाइटल से बिलोंग करते थे, या उनका ओवर टाइम पे क्या था, टोटल पे बेनिफिट्स क्या थे, मैक्सिमम टोटल पे बेनिफिट्स क्या थे। फिर हम लोगों ने कुछ एनामोली डिटेक्ट करी थी, किसी के बेस पे में पर्टिकुलर पर्सन के बेस पे में आपको नेगेटिव बेस पे मिल रही थी। सो किसी का भी पे नेगेटिव हो नहीं सकता है। तो ये सारी चीजें एनालिसिस पार्ट में आती है। आपने ये सारी चीजें किसके थ्रू करी थी? यूजिंग द मीन फंक्शन, यूजिंग द मैक्स फंक्शन, यूजिंग मिनिमम फंक्शन। और जो pandas लाइब्रेरी हम लोगों ने कवर करी थी टू वर्क अराउंड द टेबुलर डेटा, दैट इज योर हेट्रोजेनस टेबुलर डेटा। ये सारी चीजें हम लोगों ने कवर की थी। नाउ डेटा को विजुअलाइज करके कैसे इन्फरेंस निकालते हैं वो हम लोग आज देखेंगे। इन्फरेंस, सी, आप प्लॉटिंग करते हो, हम लोग यहाँ पे खूब सारे डिफरेंट डिफरेंट पैटर्न्स के प्लॉट्स क्रिएट करेंगे, बट द एम इज नॉट टू जस्ट प्लॉट द ग्राफ्स और चार्ट्स. The aim is to what the charts and plots are saying, what we have to find the inference behind them. मतलब हमको उस क्या सजेस्ट कर रहा है कोई भी प्लॉट, ये पता करना इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। मतलब आपको सिर्फ चार्ट बना के योर वर्क इज नॉट डन। You want to know what they are saying because you want to make the decisions based on it, right? So let's move, क्या क्या करना है, कौन कौन सी लाइब्रेरीज हमको लगेगी। तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हमको एक्सटर्नल लाइब्रेरीज, अगेन जस्ट लाइक numpy and pandas, we need external libraries, and those external libraries are seaborn and matplotlib. Basically matplotlib is your parent library. You will be needing this matplotlib to work around with the seaborn. ठीक है, मैटप्लॉटलिब का हम लोग बहुत रेयर यूज करेंगे, बट इफ यू वांट टू मेक अ वेरी कस्टमाइज्ड ग्राफ एंड चार्ट्स, सो यू विल बी नीडिंग मैटप्लॉटलिब। सो हम लोग आते हैं कि अब लाइब्रेरीज हम लोगों को इंस्टॉल कैसे करना, जस्ट लाइक व्हाट वी डिड अर्लियर विद द numpy एंड pandas। यहाँ पे आपको एनाकोंडा प्रॉम्प्ट पे जाना है, सो लेट्स मूव देयर, and again this terminal will open for you. Then pip, that is pip install which library? Matplotlib. So enter. It will take some time. Right now I will again get the requirement satisfied message, so we'll have to wait for it. So yeah, now it's time for installing that seaborn library. So while installing both of these libraries, I will get the requirement satisfied because I have already installed this libraries. Now what about you? जब आप इसको install करोगे तब आपको खूब सारे loading the packages and some channels. So again, make sure that you have nice internet connection while installing the libraries. After that, you can just switch off your internet and work around. So we have installed both of these libraries, seaborn as well as matplotlib, right? So let's exit from here. Now, what you have to do, we saw earlier in pandas कि हम लोग अपनी CSV file, that is the comma separated files को हम लोग read करा सकते हैं through pandas, right? So we need the data that we need to visualize. So there is a data set Titanic underscore train. This is basically a hello world data set of the machine learning. This is known as hello world data set of machine learning. So we will be using this data set to visualize what is there in this data set, which column is very influential, what this data is telling you about, and so many other things. So let's first of all हम लोगों को data चाहिए, right? So we will be working with that famous Titanic data set for this exercise. Now first of all, always make this a habit to import all the required libraries that you know and which you think that will be used in further your work or in your project, right? So आप सबसे पहला स्टेप जो भी libraries हैं आपको लगता है that you will be needing those in your projects or work, always first import them. So let's import these libraries: pandas as pd, numpy as np, matplotlib.pyplot. See, again, we call numpy as np. The same thing will happen with matplotlib dot pyplot. This pyplot is basically a sub module given by this matplotlib library. So we will call this matplotlib.pyplot as plt and cborn as sns. These are some terms that which these are the aliases that we will use. So let's copy this. Okay, import numpy as np, import pandas as pd, import matplotlib.pyplot as plt, import cborn as sns. Yeah. So numpy, okay. So this one is good to go. So we first import every library because installation is not the only part we need. After installing, we want to work with them. So first we have to import it, right? So let's let it take some time and we will move further. The data. The data is a Titanic train underscore train. Always remember to correct. हमेशा आपको correct name उठा के यहाँ पे you have to feed, right? pd dot read what kind of file? CSV file. So pd dot read underscore CSV. And where is our CSV file? Let's say it's a Titanic underscore train dot CSV. Again, I will repeat, this particular CSV file is actually in my current directory where I am working, where my other notebooks are there. So I don't have to change the path or give the path, right? पर अगर आपकी अगर CSV file downloads पे पड़ी है या somewhere in your system, so always make sure to give the path, correct path of that CSV file, right? So let's see, have we imported everything? Yeah. So let's see data. I will show you what's my current path. You can check your current path at say pwd. So this is basically my current path. And you can see in this folder, I have already put my Titanic underscore train dot csv file. Now I want to work with them. So let's take some more cells here, input cells. we will we will be needing as many input cells as uh, because the project is a very big project. So let's see, data is equals to pd dot read underscore csv and Titanic train dot csv. See, you can auto complete things if they are in your working directory. So just I wrote ti and click on the tab option on my keyboard. Okay, so you got the autocomplete options here. Titanic underscore train dot csv. What we need to do now, we just have to run this cell. So whatever the csv file you have read earlier in this input cell, इट इज एक्चुअली आपका ये पैंडास के डेटा फ्रेम फॉर्मेट में आपने इसको रीड करा है. सो आप इसका यू कैन चेक द फर्स्ट 4 or 5 rows observations of this data. So you can see here these are the first 4 or 5 rows of this data set. What we have are passenger id, passenger class, the passenger name, their gender, their age, whether they have sibling or spouse related data, where they have embark and everything related to a passenger, their ticket number, fare they paid, and so on. Embark, basically this is the categorical, from where they have aboard the board the Titanic. So these are all the features. I will be calling columns as a feature, because these are the feature. See, if you are a passenger, then your passenger ID, passenger class, your name, your gender, your age, and everything. These are the features, right? Belonging to you as a customer. So now the column labels, which we saw earlier in pandas, we will be calling those as features. So these are all feature. And this thing, basically, this Titanic data set was given for classification purpose. Classification, that is your machine learning with classification. You want to classify, given all the information about the passenger, say passenger ID, passenger class, their gender, their name. You want to predict, you have to predict what, whether that passenger gonna survive or not. Survive, it means yes, that is one. Not survive, that is zero, that is belongs to zero. Zero means no, and one means yes. So इस तरह से basically आपका ये जो टाइटैनिक डेटा सेट था, ये मशीन लर्निंग पर्पस के लिए यूज हुआ था टू प्रिडिक्ट, given the passenger details, you want to predict whether this person or a passenger gonna survive or not. So we will see this further in our course, and we will be using the same data set only, but right now we will get a gist about the data, what the data has, what they are talking about, and does passenger ID or passenger class means uh, third class, second class, or first class, does it affect whether the person gonna survive or not, whether the gender of the person affect their chances of surviving, whether the age plays a very vital role or not in predicting whether the passenger gonna survive or not. These are the things which we can get to know using the visualizations, bars and charts and graphs. So we saw what we already read the file, read the CSV file. We saw how it looks like, what are the features. Now let's say I want to know what are the indexes, कितने passengers का data है, and what are the column names. So what you will do is data dot columns. So these are all the columns or the features available to you in this data set. What about the indexes? How many observations are there? So what you will do is index. So basically you have 892, or I should say 892 पैसेंजर डेटा. सो आपके पास में 892 पैसेंजर से रिलेटेड डेटा है यहाँ पे, एंड उनके बारे में क्या क्या फीचर्स बताए गए हैं. पैसेंजर आईडी, whether they are gonna survive, whether they survived or not, passenger class, name, gender, age, siblings, whether they have siblings or spouse or not. So इस तरह से आप एक आइडिया लेते हो, जनरल आइडिया, व्हाट इज देयर इन योर डेटा सेट. नाउ लेट्स कम टू द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट. आपको कभी भी मशीन लर्निंग हम लोग जब आगे करेंगे, जब एल्गोरिदम्स वगैरह पढ़ते हैं, वेयर वी नीड टू सेंड दिस डेटा to our machine to learn things, right? So we don't need anomalies in it, right? हम लोगों को किसी भी टाइप का anomaly नहीं पसंद आता उसमें, because if there is a anomaly present in our data set, हम लोगों का machine learning भी will behave very differently. जैसा हम लोगों को उसको task perform कराना था, वैसा task perform नहीं करे. So what is that anomaly? The first thing we need to handle is the missing data. Missing data means maybe something question mark. आपको नाम दिए हुए हैं. Suppose यहाँ पे जेंडर्स एंड एज दिया हुआ था. एज कॉलम में कुछ पैसेंजर्स की एज मिसिंग है, मे बी बिकॉज उनके डेटाबेस में या उस पर्टिकुलर पर्सन का एज वाज नॉट रिकॉग्नाइजेबल. इस तरह से अगर कुछ पैसेंजर से रिलेटेड उनका एज, वी डोंट हैव देयर एज, सो व्हाट वी विल राइट हियर इज NaN. जिस भी पैसेंजर से रिलेटेड आपके पास में डेटा नहीं है, से उसका फेयर, व्हाट फेयर ही और शी हैज पेड, आपके पास में उससे रिलेटेड डेटा नहीं है, so what you will do, you will see the null values or the missing value in it. अब how many missing values are actually present in each and every column, we want to know. After that we can handle them, right? सबसे पहला स्टेप होता है कि हम लोगों को डेटा सेट में ये पता होना चाहिए कि इज देयर एनी null values present in each and every column or not. So what you will do is data dot, we saw this earlier, this actually हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे काउंट किया था कॉलम वाइज इन pandas library, right? तो वहां पे हर कॉलम में कितने मिसिंग वैल्यूज हैं, first we need to find is there any missing values, so dot is null. Okay, if there is a null values then sum them up. So आपको इस तरह से हर कॉलम के करस्पॉन्डिंग टोटल नंबर ऑफ मिसिंग वैल्यूज मिलेंगे. सो राइट नाउ आई कैन सी दैट एज कॉलम के अंदर मोस्ट ऑफ द मिसिंग वैल्यूज है. सो आउट ऑफ 892 जो आपके पास में पैसेंजर्स के ऑब्जर्वेशन थी, जो पैसेंजर का डिटेल्स थी, उसमें से 177 पैसेंजर से रिलेटेड आपके पास में एज मिसिंग है, राइट? नाउ व्हाट अबाउट द कैबिन? 687 out of 892, 687 are missing. द पैसेंजर के कैबिन की डिटेल मिसिंग है. कितने पैसेंजर्स की? 687. एम्बार्क पैसेंजर कहाँ से अबोर्ड हुआ था ऑन दैट टाइटैनिक शिप, कितने पैसेंजर्स का डेटा गायब है? 2 पैसेंजर्स का. सो हाउ टू हैंडल दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स, हाउ टू हैंडल द मिसिंग वैल्यूज? सो लेट्स डू दिस. फर्स्ट कैलकुलेट द missing values is null. So what you will get here is a bunch of trues and false in each and every column. So you will get false, false, false wherever the data is not missing, and you will get true wherever the data is actually missing. So you can see here in the cabin column there are some trues available, which means at this position, that is row number 886, there was a missing values in in our cabin column. So we need to sum them up, right? So let's do that. So you get the same result. 177 data is missing about the age of the customer or the passenger, and 687 observations are missing about the cabin of the passenger, and 2 in the embark column. So now how to handle them? Through the heat map. See, अभी आपके पास में 12 कॉलम्स है, इस तरह से 12 कॉलम्स है, 12 फीचर्स है इस पर्टिकुलर डेटा में. व्हाट इफ आपको जो रियल वर्ल्ड और भी डेटा सेट्स होते हैं उसमें 30 फीचर्स होते हैं. सो यू कैन बी डूइंग लाइक दिस. हम लोग और कोई दूसरा तरीका ढूंढने की कोशिश करें. वी विल ट्राई टू फाइंड मोर सोफिस्टिकेटेड वे. इस तरह से आप अगर 30 फीचर्स है तो यू विल गेट अ वेरी लॉन्ग लिस्ट of all the 30 features and their belonging, whether they have a missing value or not. So we need a sophisticated way, and that sophisticated way is given to you by these plotting libraries that we imported earlier, right, and installed earlier. So we will create heat maps to locate missing data. We will create a heat map. Heat map will look something like this. So what these yellow dash marks are telling you about? See, in the heat map, अगर आपके पर्टिकुलर पैसेंजर आईडी में अगर there is no other color present in this particular column belonging to passenger ID, then there is no missing value present. Same goes for the survive column, same goes for passenger, name, gender, birth. In age column, you can see some of the yellow lines, some of the different yellow lines. It means there is a presence of missing values in this particular column. And again, same siblings and spouse, there is no such missing values. Fair, no such missing values. But in the cabin column, you can see some so many yellow lines, so many yellow dash lines. It means there are so many missing values present in this particular column. So we need to handle it, right? In embark, there is a very small dash line. So yeah, the missing embark column have some missing values, but they are so small in comparison to other column के अंदर जो missing values है उनके comparison में this is very insignificant. Obviously, 682 is very insignificant in comparison to 687. But this 2 is also an anomaly that we need to remove or which we have to deal with. Right? So let's plot SNS heat map. So how you will plot SNS, that is your Seaborn. Using the Seaborn library, heat map. So let's auto complete it. What it takes first as an argument, it takes your data dot is null. That is the data frame containing trues and false that we saw earlier from this code, right? So we will plot this. Let me just copy this. Yeah, and what other things? Y tick labels basically आपको पता है आप plot करते हो तो y axis के ऊपर भी tick marks रहते हैं, so we don't want those tick marks, right? So we will what y tick labels equals to false. Yeah, y tick equals to false. So what other things? Y tick labels false. Yeah, column bar. No, we don't need the column bars, right? So we made it false. It's up to you. If you prefer column bars, and you can set it to true. Color map. This is basically you can see here violet and yellow, right? This is the color mapping. Yellow color means it's missing values. Violet color or something shade, some kind of shade of this violet means no missing values. There are some other shades also, palettes. These are the palettes. How you want to plot this? Cool, warm, rainbow, so you can work around these other palettes also. We preferred with this because it looks a little bit nice to get to know कि कितने क्या missing values है. But there are other palettes also. And अगर let's say I just remove this with this and let's plot cool warm here. What I will get? So this is the cool warm pattern, right? And what about rainbow? Let's do that. So this is your rainbow, but I would prefer viridis because it is a little bit nice to look at. Yeah, so let's move further. We got to know how many missing values. So there is an explanation. Roughly 10 to 20% of the data belonging to age is missing. The proportion of age is missing is likely a very small enough. So हम लोग इसको remove नहीं करेंगे. We won't drop this particular row because it has a particular column or the rows where the missing value is present in the age column. We won't drop it because it is only 10 to 20%. We can't drop this thing, right? So we will try to replace this missing value with something else. So looking at the cabin column, it looks like we are just missing too much of data. Obviously 687 data is missing out of the 892, so it's too much to do something useful with the at the basic level. So we will blindly drop this column without any further thoughts. Okay, and what about this embark column? Only two rows data missing, so we can also drop this particular row wherever the data is missing in the embarked column. Okay, so let's move further. Let's continue plotting some more and get to know about it, right? Get to know what the data is telling you about. Now let's come to the count plots. Count plots basically it counts how many we want to plot or we want to count or have a visualization look at the count plot of the survive column from our data. right? Survive column में how many people survive, that is your one, and how many people were not able to survive or were not able to make. सो उनसे रिलेटेड आपको काउंटिंग निकालना है कि हमारे डेटा में कितने लोगों से रिलेटेड डेटा था, जो टोटल डेटा है 892 का, उसमें से कितने लोग सरवाइव करे थे एंड कितने लोग सरवाइव नहीं कर पाए थे, इनका आपको एक काउंट निकालना है. सो यू विल बी यूजिंग दिस काउंट प्लॉट एंड यू कैन सी वन मोर कोड हियर, सेट sns डॉट set underscore style white grid. So ये behind this plot you can see some grid lines, right? So this is just aesthetic. आप इस तरह से उसको और अच्छा बनाने के लिए, आपके प्लॉट को थोड़ा सा visually अच्छा create करने के लिए you can use this styles. You can set the styles. There are so many other styles also present, like dark style and everything. So you can again work around with the style, manipulate these things. Now the main thing is count plot. Again I use how to plot this using the colors. Which color palette? Cool warm palette. So again it will look a little bit nice to us. So let's plot this count plot. sns dot count plot of what? X equals to your survive column. So let's do one thing. First print all the column names of the data so that we can just copy and paste. Yeah, so this is the survive column. What you will do, control C and let's say control V. Okay, so we got the survive column. From where we want to pull this survive column? From the data, right? So and the next thing is palette, let's say cool warm. Let's plot it. So right now I haven't set the style, so you won't be getting any grid like structure here, but you can see most of the people जिनके भी बारे में आपको यहाँ पे डेटा सेट में ऑब्जर्वेशन दिए थे, आउट ऑफ देम अराउंड 530 पीपल वर एक्चुअली नॉट एबल टू मेक, मतलब उनका वो सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाए थे. उनका काउंट इज वेरी हाई एज कंपेयर टू जो लोग सर्वाइव कर पाए थे, अराउंड 350 320 मे बी. So you can see, you can get an inference. Now we are talking about the inference. We are talking about what actually the plot is saying, right? So the plot, according to the plot, most of the people in our given data were not able to survive, and their count is very much high. And what about the people who survive? They are very low in count. So let's move further. What are the other count plots? Now one more thing, हम लोगों को जो सर्वाइव करे हैं और जो सर्वाइव नहीं कर पाए हैं, उनमें who are these people, whether they are male, whether they are female. हम लोगों को पर्टिकुलर इस काउंटिंग में जो लोग सरवाइव नहीं कर पाए थे उनमें फर्दर काउंटिंग करना है कि जो सरवाइव नहीं कर पाए थे उसमें फीमेल पैसेंजर्स कितने थे, मेल पैसेंजर्स कितने थे. सो वी विल गेट टू नो कि जो बेसिकली 530 520 पीपल जो सर्वाइव नहीं कर रहे थे उसमें से मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल कौन से जेंडर से बिलोंग करते थे. सो फॉर दैट व्हाट यू विल डू, यू विल जस्ट ऐड अ यू, means you want to again segregate or further distribute this graph, right, based on the gender. So what you will do is you will use this argument u equals to gender. So let's do that. Let's copy this code and add one more argument. Again I will be using this column names list. Yeah, so let's do that. So now this is more suggestive that out of 520 or 530, I'm taking just approximate, out of 520 or 530 passengers who were not able to make it, in that most of the passengers were male. So you can see in a blue color, it belongs to male category, and this beige color belongs to female category. So out of all the 525 30 people, most of them who were not able to make were male passengers, and female passengers were very little, right? What about the passengers who were able to make? In that category, in this category, you can see most of the people who were able to survive were female passengers, because the count of the female out of how many, let's say approximately 320, the count of the female passengers in that 320 out of 320 is around 220, 210. So it's much more as compared to male passengers. So I can get an idea what happened on that day टाइटैनिक जब ये mishappening हुआ था, what actually happened. So most of the people who died that day were male, belonging to male categories, and survive, most of the people who survived were male and some more of a female. Let's move further. Don't not let's not make assumption based on this uh, your plot, but I'm pretty much near to the assumption, right? So I can make the assumption, I can make an inference out of it, that I'm very much sure now, you looking at this graph, that the people who were not able to make were most of them male, because now I have a proof, because I have plotted that graph, right? So let's move further. We have more things to do now. Earlier when we read that data, I told you कि हम लोगों को survive, because आगे जाके हम लोग इसी चीज का predictions करेंगे कि given the passenger data, उसका passenger class क्या है, उसका age क्या है, उसका gender क्या है, we want to make the prediction whether that person gonna survive or not, right? So survive, we need to plot everything against the survive column. So now we saw that yeah, gender plays a very important role in predicting whether that person gonna survive or not. What about the passenger class? Does it matter where from which passenger class that person or that passenger belongs to? See, passenger class basically हम लोग train से travel करते हैं. So third AC, second AC, and first AC. First AC is more of a royalty, right? We have to pay more to sit in the AC class 1. AC 3, that is class 3 AC, we need to pay less. So does it matter? Here also there is a passenger class. So basically the first class, which was a very high priced in the Titanic data set, in the Titanic, was basically at the deck. आपका जो शिप का इस तरह से स्ट्रक्चर होता है, यहाँ पे जो पैसेंजर क्लास था, क्लास 1, वो बेसिकली डेक के मतलब अपर एरिया में था, अपर एरिया से लगा हुआ था. जो पैसेंजर क्लास 3 था वो एट वाज एट द लोएस्ट लेवल, मतलब नियर टू द सी. सो डज इट मैटर कि पैसेंजर का क्लास क्या होगा एंड उसके सर्वाइविंग रेट पे असर होगा उस चीज का? वी नीड टू फाइंड दैट. सो नाउ वी विल प्लॉट दिस सर्वाइव column against what? We will subdivide it based on the passenger of that passengers ka class. So let's do that. Let's copy this thing and plot it here, and it's passengers class, where it is. Yeah, passenger class. Okay, let's run it. Yes, you can see major passenger class playing a major role. See, in this graph, we are talking about people who were not able to make. Most of them, most of them belong to what passenger class? Third class. So now I'm very much sure that the people who died were most of them male, The people who died were belong to, most of them belong to what passenger class? Passenger class 3. So now I can relate that gender versus passenger class. So most of the people who were male who died actually most of them belong to the passenger class 3. So you can now see how we can relate things based on this through visualizing the graph. आपको विजुअलाइजेशन से काफी सारी हिंट मिलती है व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन दैट डेटा, क्योंकि अगर आप इस तरह से अगर मैंने अर्लियर इफ आई आस्क यू या टेल मी सरवाइव होने के चांसेस किस चीज के ऊपर डिपेंड करते हैं, सो यू वोंट बी एबल टू मेक द assumption, बट नाउ लुकिंग एट दिस ब्यूटीफुल ग्राफ्स एंड चार्ट्स एंड कितने मिसिंग है, किस पर्टिकुलर कॉलम का इफेक्ट ज्यादा है ऑन द सर्वाइविंग ऑफ दैट पैसेंजर, आपने इस तरह से बहुत सारे प्लॉट्स यूज करके काफी सारे assumption which now I won't be calling it assumption, I will be calling them as an inferences निकाले, because now there are no more assumptions, you are pretty much sure about them, right? So these were the inferences that most of the people who were not able to make and were belongs to how many which class? Passenger class 3, and they were around 360 maybe. So out of how many people? 520. The people who were not able to make 350 or 360 were actually from where they belong? From the passenger class 3. So this is what inference does. Now let's come to the next plotting. We saw earlier about the passenger class, how it affects the surviving rate. Now, does it matter? Now we want to know how many people actually had siblings or spouses, right? We want to know. We don't want to relate it to surviving. We just want to know how many people actually had siblings or the spouse. So what you will do is we just want to make a graph belonging to only sibling and spouse column. So let's remove everything from here. Yeah, let's siblings and spouse. So let me just copy this column name from here so we won't make any typing error. Yeah, so let's run this. So you can see here most of the passenger didn't have any what? Siblings or either a spouse, right? So most of the people out of 892, around 602 maybe people were bachelors. They don't have any siblings or spouse with them when they board the Titanic, right? And some of them had one spouse or maybe one sibling. Some of them had two siblings. But their rate is very very low. So people having siblings as well as spouse, their count is very low, right? But most of the passenger doesn't on that day were all alone or the bachelors who board that Titanic, right? So now you can make this inference using, you know, watching this graph or making the inferences out of it. So I can now assume, now I will relate this thing now. टाइटैनिक में जितने भी पैसेंजर्स चढ़े थे मोस्ट ऑफ देम वर अलोन, राइट? They didn't have any siblings or either a spouse with them. And how much were them? Out of 892 passengers, they were 600 around people who were alone on that Titanic, right? So this is how you make the inferences using this count plot and using this visualization library. Now we want to know how many people based on the embark from where they actually boarded, right? We want to count those people. हम लोगों को कौन साउथहैम्पटन से कौन क्वीन से कितने कितने लोग चढ़े थे उसका एक काउंट क्रिएट करना है. सो लेट्स डू दैट. Uh, yeah, embarked. Yeah. So now I can see here most of the people who were there on the Titanic were actually boarded from Southampton, then a little less from the other places, right? So yeah, you can make this assumption, you can make this inference based on you know based on this graph that most of the people were actually from the Southampton.